We both know the most dangerous mistake in business. But that morning, the 42nd floor boardroom of Whitmore Global held a silence only massive wealth and absolute fear can buy. Sharp morning light sliced through. It struck the massive walnut conference table, glinting off pristine water glasses and dark silent laptops. It illuminated 4 overseas partners, flown in just to sign a $400 million corporate merger. Standing at the head of that table sat 28-year-old Astrid Whitmore, the acting chief executive, wielding a famous name branded on the building itself. Wearing a sharp black dress, she paced the room. Her expensive heels clicked against the hardwood like small, arrogant verdicts. With dark hair and a chilly, controlled voice, she had the most ruthless eyes in the entire company. Down at the opposite end sat 29-year-old Finn Corbin, the quietest man in the room. His dress shirt was rumpled, his sleeves pushed up, with only a thin file resting before him. He was a simple risk analyst, far below the senior executives. Nobody had bothered introducing him to their wealthy foreign guests. Outside the heavy glass wall, his 6-year-old daughter Callista sat alone, squeezing her knees tightly together. She clutched a ragged stuffed bunny to her chest, waiting patiently for her father to return. Finn had just addressed the powerful room, speaking with utter, terrifying calm. He exposed a hidden disruption clause buried inside the contract addendum. It could drain $700 million from the firm if multiple shipping ports failed in a single quarter. Astrid stared at him with the cold, mocking patience of a ruler dismissing a peasant. She leaned back, wearing an icy, condescending smile. Then she whispered a threat only the nearest board members could hear. "Try me again, I dare you." But within 10 minutes, the truth would leave her speechless. Let's step back a few hours before the boardroom doors unlocked and the city skyline was dark. The quiet analyst sat on a cramped twin bed in his modest apartment, listening to his daughter breathe. Little Callista had been awake, coughing terribly since 2 in the morning. He spent that brutal, quiet hour pressing a gentle, reassuring hand against her back, tracking the exact seconds between every ragged breath. By the time her chest quieted down, the morning sky was turning pale. The building woke up with a rumble, but Finn never closed his eyes again. His phone vibrated quietly at 5:45. He silenced the screen before it could ring twice. He crept around, using that silent glide parent's master when keeping a sick child asleep is everything. In the dark kitchen, he prepared 2 eggs and poured a glass of orange juice. Then he set up the coffee maker, delaying his own caffeine fix for now. A hot cup of coffee was a reward earned only after her lunch was packed. He opened his laptop on the counter, scanning his inbox while breakfast cooked. Head legal counsel Leon Hawthorne had just rubber-stamped the flawed multiport contract. Finn stared at the approval twice. He had flagged severe financial dangers 3 days ago, only to receive a dismissive corporate brush-off. Now, with one lazy stroke, the powerful elite buried his honest work under mindless bureaucracy. Finn closed the laptop. Men of truth always wait until they see the entire board. At 6:20, his screen flashed with an urgent notification from the school. A broken water pipe had flooded the elementary school overnight, canceling classes for the day. We both know that life has a cruel sense of timing. Finn read it standing there. He did not smash a plate, nor did he swear. "Let's look at this closely." Finn stared at the text, then at his packed corporate calendar. Then he looked down the quiet hallway, leading to his daughter Callista's bedroom. A crucial board meeting loomed. The powerful senior partners had already flown in. The massive corporate deal was at noon. He nervously dialed 3 numbers. The neighbor who usually helped watch Callista was away visiting her family. The daycare demanded 24 hours notice and a medical form from her pediatrician. Callista's grandmother lived 4 states away. Finn set his phone on the counter, standing completely silent until the coffee finished brewing. Then this quiet, overlooked father did the only thing possible. He packed a small canvas bag with colored pencils, a sketch pad, juice, and crackers. Her critical allergy inhaler, and the stuffed rabbit she refused to leave behind. By the time the little girl wandered into the kitchen in her pajamas, rubbing one sleepy eye with her tiny fist, he had her clothes ready, masking his deep panic with a warm smile. "Morning, Bunny," he said gently. "Change of plans. School is closed today. You are going to hang out with Dad for a little while." She looked back at him, with that serious expression that always surprised him. "Is it a big day at work?" "A little bit. I will be really quiet." "I know you will," he whispered, kneeling down to tie her tiny sneakers. "Hot chocolate if you are." She paused, quietly considering his offer. She nodded once, like a tiny CEO accepting terms, and grabbed her rabbit. The commute into the towering financial district was normal, until it suddenly wasn't. While Callista hummed, Finn checked his mirrors 3 times more than any driver needed to. He blocked out the massive merger deal and that highly risky financial addendum. His mind was on her inhaler and the doctor appointment he had postponed twice, along with the rent payment that would hit his bank account this Friday. These intense hidden pressures made him a sharp, quiet observer. Quiet people notice everything. He could not afford a single mistake this week. He parked beneath Whitmore Global headquarters at exactly 7:51. He lifted Callista from her seat, slinging her tiny backpack over his shoulder. Then he walked her into the executive lounge, a cold glass room built for corporate elites. He settled her into a large leather chair by the window with her sketch pad. He introduced the receptionist, Nora, who beamed at Callista as if she had spent her entire morning shift waiting just to see her. "I need you to stay right here," Finn whispered gently. "If you need anything, tell Miss Nora. If you need me, she will find me. I will check on you soon, and we can have lunch together." "Can you do this for Dad?" Callista nodded, solemn as a judge. She held up her stuffed rabbit. "We will wait." He kissed her head, heading back to his quiet, unnoticed cubicle. He missed the powerful CEO, Astrid Whitmore, watching from behind her cold glass door. She was observing this tiny girl in sneakers and a blue cardigan, holding a stuffed rabbit, staring through the glass as if she had done this 100 times. Now see the contrast. Astrid slept 4 hours, memorizing the massive corporate agenda perfectly. Her billionaire father, George Whitmore, had warned her that forcing this deal through would prove to the board she could run the company alone. We both know the powerful never let a challenge slide. Yet her arrogant eyes completely missed the messy, wrinkled child waiting nearby. And she ignored the quiet analyst who refused to just stay silent. Turning from the window, she saw Clinton Mercer posing in the doorway with coffee and a thick folder. He was 45, sporting neatly styled silver hair. His expensive silk tie was just another loud cry for corporate status. He held the empty title of Chief Strategy Officer. He had been coasting there 10 years longer than Astrid had ever held her fragile power. He wore that classic empty corporate smile, all teeth, completely dead eyes. "The operations team wants to play cute this morning," he smirked. "I hear Corbin is actually demanding another meeting about the addendum." "He already had one," Astrid snapped. "Legal signed off. It makes no sense." "Strange how." Clinton set the coffee down, taking a slow, calculated breath. "He is cautious, sure, but he built himself up through real operations. He spots worst-case disasters the same way you and I notice rain clouds. Great for loading cargo ships. Terrible when you are trying to close a massive deal with executives who flew across the globe to sign." He stared right through the glass toward the quiet lounge. "I actually noticed he brought his daughter with him today. I sure hope everything is fine at home." Astrid watched them coldly. The quiet little girl with her rabbit was peacefully drawing. Her tiny tongue poked out, lost in deep, innocent concentration. Astrid snapped back to her monitor. "Put that addendum on my desk. I will review it before 10. "Already on your desk," Clinton smirked, leaving. Meanwhile, in his quiet cubicle, Finn already had the real contract open. He compared both contract versions side by side, quietly tracing the edits hidden within the system's history. What this quiet analyst uncovered was dangerously clear. The original fare clause shared all financial risk for port delays on an honest, sliding scale, using thresholds that adjusted automatically based on how severe the actual crisis became. But this new edit completely destroyed that safety net, replacing it with a financial trap, forcing their own firm to absorb the heaviest losses, regardless of who caused the disaster. If one port failed, the damage was still manageable. But if 2 or 3 ports froze simultaneously during bad storms or heavy labor strikes, this reckless new language would drag the entire firm down, drowning them in debt. He quickly traced the digital metadata. An executive had quietly saved this trap at 10:52 last night, abusing their top-level security rights. Finn calmly opened his sent mail. He pulled up his own warning from 3 days ago, calling this exact clause a massive, dangerous risk, demanding a written answer before this reached any partners. Leon had brushed him off with 2 empty words. Noted, thanks, that was his entire reply. They did not protect the company. Someone in power intentionally poisoned the deal. Finn did not shout. Those with the real truth never do, no loud scenes. Instead, he exported the history, took time-to-smanted screenshots, and saved 3 devastating risk scenarios onto a flash drive he kept ready for these exact crises. Then he walked down to the legal department, knocking on Leon Hawthorne's door. Leon was a seasoned corporate player who preferred silent backroom deals over loud public battles. He looked up from his screen. Trust me, he was not smiling. You cleared the addendum this morning, Finn. I cleared only what was handed to me. But that multi-port language was changed late last night. And I flagged the original text 3 days ago. Leon, I must know if you understood those changes and who exactly demanded them. Leon adjusted his glasses, ignoring the only honest man there. We had pressure to simplify before the partners arrived. I was told the structure held. Told by whom? I was just told. Leon stared at his screen. Finn, let me be honest. If you want this contract clause reopened, you are doing that completely on your own. Finn met the silence with calm resolve, nodding once. I appreciate the honesty. Armed with the truth, he went upstairs to speak with Astrid Whitmore. Her assistant gave him 2 minutes. He made every second count. Standing across from her desk, he exposed the dangerous corporate risk in 4 sharp sentences. Astrid just sat there in smug silence, her chin raised, fingers bridged. Foolishly underestimating him, she flipped 2 pages and snapped his folder shut. Legal signed off, she dismissed him. I believe that change followed a complete review. I can show you the document history, just send it to my email. I will review it later. Finn desperately wanted to speak up right then. But he held his tongue, thanked her politely, and walked out. Clinton gave a patronizing nod, making the classic corporate mistake of assuming silence meant submission. Finn ignored that arrogant gesture entirely. Back at his desk, he prepared the raw truth, the document history, and a financial disaster model. He sent it to Astrid, Leon, and a blind carbon copy list reaching the board chairman. By 9:30 in the morning, Clinton demanded an urgent corporate review. On paper, it was billed as an executive alignment meeting. But you and I know the truth. They summoned Finn 15 minutes late. The powerful executives were already settled in, sipping their warm coffee. The quiet father entered, watching the arrogant female CEO dominate the head of the table. Clinton sat on her right while Leon slumped nearby, staring guiltily at the wooden table. The quiet father bravely took the isolated seat at the far end. Clinton began the meeting with a highly rehearsed corporate narrative. We have a slight gap in the operational confirmation chain regarding this deal. This morning's addendum caused a minor misunderstanding down at the execution level. I want this resolved before noon. Notice how he ignored Finn. Power refuses to acknowledge the truth. Clinton used his heavy silences like weapons, hoping to crush anyone who dared to speak. But Finn broke the silence, laying out the facts calmly and without drama. He reminded them of the warning he raised last Thursday. He had demanded written proof before they allowed a single dangerous change. Leon saw his warning, but the powerful simply chose to ignore the truth. The contract shown to the partners was a lie, completely different from what operations actually approved. The only honest man in the room never even raised his voice. Across the table, Leon cowered while the powerful CEO sat in icy defensive silence. Then the arrogant CEO straightened her papers, speaking in the smooth, dismissive tone she always used to silence truth in rooms like this. Caution certainly has its place. A deal we spent 14 months structuring cannot be stalled by some worst-case scenario that may never even happen. You operations people are just wired to obsess over what might go wrong. We both know powerful leaders only care about crossing the finish line. It was the kind of line built for corporate boardrooms, but utterly toxic to a human conscience. Finn simply absorbed the blow, remaining completely and resolutely silent. Changing corporate culture wasn't his goal today. He just needed to fix that one dangerous contract clause. But Astrid wasn't done. She didn't look at the waiting room, but the threat was clear. I also want to add, she said, that when personal matters interfere with a major signing day, The employees handling them might not be equipped to handle the risk and pressure. And that is something we must all keep in mind. No one dared mention his little girl waiting outside. The silence said enough. A quiet fury burned inside him, yet his expression stayed as cold and still as stone. He caught the faint, sharp click of a nearby office door sealing them in. He chose to completely ignore her cheap shot at his personal life. He absolutely refused to let them use his daughter as a corporate pawn. He quietly replied, "I will be ready to provide technical support during the partner meeting if needed." Astrid nodded. The executives moved on, completely ignoring the massive financial threat he had exposed. Leaving the room, a senior manager actively avoided his gaze. But another executive, an older finance head who had known him for 2 years, caught his arm near the exit and whispered, "Send me the document's version history." He sent the file over before even sitting back down. We both know the drill. The corporation instantly began punishing his honesty with a polite, systematic wall of silence. Without warning, his access to 2 critical network folders was completely revoked. His security badge let out a sharp, hostile beep when he tried to enter the main executive wing, forcing the receptionist to buzz him through. Back at his desk, an email from Human Resources demanded a mandatory routine documentation review for the next morning, entirely leaving out any agenda. Colleagues who normally waved now suddenly stared deep into their phones as he walked past. But Finn didn't panic. He just walked down to the lounge. There was his daughter, legs swinging, happily drawing a little boat riding on ocean waves. She proudly held up her masterpiece as he walked in. He sat beside her in peaceful silence for 4 minutes. He noticed the tiny figure wearing a tie on the ship's deck and smiled. "Is that me?" She nodded. He held the drawing up to the window, declaring it the greatest vessel ever sketched. As he stood, she looked up and asked, "Daddy, why did your badge make that weird beep?" "The scanner is just acting up today," he lied gently, adjusting her tiny sweater. "Nothing to worry about." He kissed her forehead and headed straight back to his station. Slumped back in his chair, he pulled up his personal email on his phone. A notification flashed on screen. His daughter's medical specialist appointment next Tuesday, already rescheduled twice. A prescription alert popped up, then rent, autopay was hitting this Friday. He stared at the screen, feeling the heavy burden of a single dad. A single misstep now would bring his entire quiet world crashing down. Then he flipped his laptop open. He swiftly copied every document from that morning's meeting onto an encrypted flash drive. He attached a clear cover sheet outlining those critical financial liabilities. He penned a brief message directly to the board chairman. It was utterly respectful but brutally honest. But he didn't press send just yet. We both know they underestimated him. When everyone else is silent, the truth belongs to the one brave enough to drop the hammer. He slipped away quietly, retreating to the empty lounge. Let us look at the man they dismiss, sitting beside Callista, quietly eating while she drew them standing in a bright garden. Without looking up from her drawing, she asked, "Did you do something wrong, Dad?" He paused, making sure his voice was perfectly steady before he spoke. "Just because they tell you that you are wrong does not make it so," he told her. "Sometimes it just takes time for everyone else to finally see the truth." She silently considered his words. "Like when I spelled my name correctly, but the sub said it was wrong." "Exactly." She nodded in agreement, then quietly went back to sketching her garden. Upstairs, the intense partner meeting commenced at precisely 11:58. The room smelled of rich coffee, tailored suits, and desperate, loud ambition. 4 foreign delegates marched inside, offering Astrid slow, formal handshakes in turn. A deliberate show of respect, proving that power and hierarchy still ruled. George Whitmore joined the call, beaming in from a distant off-site location. His giant digital face loomed over them from the back of the boardroom. He bypassed his own daughter, choosing to greet the powerful CEO instead. Astrid began a slick, highly controlled presentation, eager to justify her seat at the top. Exuding pure confidence, she detailed new shipping routes and heavy long-term investments. She boasted about operational strength and the massive scale of their merged fleet. Firing back rapid answers without checking her notes, she refused to look weak. She was the clear heir, demanding that every executive in the room bow down. Meanwhile, Finn sat ignored at the back. No one even bothered to announce his title. After that morning's clash, he knew he would not sit near the center. He simply pulled up the presentation and did his vital work from the shadows. Now watched the grand illusion shatter as the partners pushed for details, exposing the cracks. An investor questioned her about the winter buffer for their northern route. Astrid boldly claimed 9 days, ignoring the fact that the real number was 11. The silent observer wrote down the actual truth and quickly ripped the paper away. He slid the note forward stealthily, ensuring no one else saw his intervention. Astrid glanced down for a brief second, then looked up, quickly covering. "Let me revise that. The confirmed delay is actually 11 days, once we account for the ice." She masked the save, pretending she had discovered the mistake all on her own. Another executive pressed her regarding priority protocols during severe coastal weather. Astrid gave a smooth response, utterly blind to a major legal loophole. Once again, Finn silently provided the truth. She read it immediately. She immediately integrated his correction. Nearby, Clinton's jaw tightened in frustration. Leon sat nearby, pen frozen over his paper, clearly sensing who was really in control. Slowly, the room realized that the ignored man in the corner held all the answers. Astrid sensed the shift, too. She burned with bitter resentment, rescued by the exact person she had claimed was completely useless to her. This was not gratitude. To her, his truth felt like a massive debt she absolutely hated owing. "Stay with me here." The senior silver-haired delegate leaned forward in his seat. He turned a page in his folder and cleared his throat with intent. "Let us discuss the amendment regarding multiport disruptions," he demanded. "The loss-sharing model was completely changed from our previous draft. Can you explain how your team calculated the financial impact if 2 or more key ports shut down at the exact same time during a strike or bad weather? You and I know that heavy boardroom silence. We all felt it right then." Astrid hid behind her rehearsed, perfectly polished corporate answer. She claimed we loosened liability rules just to build trust and move faster. She confidently weaponized that word 4 times. She completely ignored the cascading risks, not even needing to openly lie. Her slick corporate doublespeak conveniently hid the massive financial cliff we stood on. The delegate just listened without nodding. He flipped a page as quiet Finn stared at his screen. Finn glanced at his empty notepad where his ignored warnings to Astrid once sat. He pictured his daughter Callista downstairs, with her sketchpad juice and stuffed rabbit. He thought of the asthma inhaler in her bag, and that overdue doctor appointment. He remembered Leon's voice from earlier, sounding completely drained and exhausted. "If you plan to reopen this deal, you are completely on your own." The buyer sat there, waiting for someone with actual courage to tell the truth. Finn finally looked up. "If I may," he said, staying calmly seated. His voice cut the silence. The quietest man in the room held all the gravity. "This new addendum completely changes the operational structure we reviewed 2 weeks ago. In the exact scenario you just mentioned, the updated terms push a massive, unfair amount of financial risk onto us. I think everyone here needs to see this discrepancy before we sign another single page." Astrid slowly turned to face him. For a second, our fierce CEO looked completely lost. 10 years of executive training utterly failed her against the quiet, unshakable truth Finn brought to the table. His voice was neither aggressive nor apologetic. It was purely factual. It was the sound of a man with nothing to prove and absolutely nothing to hide. She chose raw power instead. Leaning back, she flashed that signature CEO smile designed to crush people and said, "Try me again. I dare you." She didn't shout, keeping her voice ice-cold and deadly quiet. She thought power still ruled that room, but Finn just stared back, totally unfazed. No anger in his eyes, no joy either. He was simply done playing their games. "I do not need to try you again," he replied. "I just need to show everyone this error." He looked straight at the buyer. "May I have 60 seconds to share a document?" The buyer gave one slow nod, and Finn calmly connected his laptop to the projector. Our corporate logo flashed on screen, quickly replaced by a clean date-stamped timeline. What happened next took less than 10 minutes. Stick with me here, because those 10 minutes completely shattered her illusion of power. First, he pulled up a warning memo he sent last Thursday to legal. It clearly flagged the port risks and demanded a written answer. Then he showed Leon's 2-word reply. Next was the file data, proving a senior executive secretly altered terms at 10:52 last night. He displayed the original agreement, right next to the secretly altered contract. Highlighted in plain English, you and I could easily spot the $700 million trap. Finally, he ran the risk model against three scenarios: a major port strike, a massive coastal storm, and a global shipping container shortage. The quiet ones do their homework, exposing arrogance with exact historical corporate filings. The total hidden exposure buried inside that revised contract language. You and I can do the math. If those scenarios overlapped, the cost easily topped $700 million. Silence choked the arrogant room. Leon went the pale color of old paper. Clinton tried hiding his panic, but a nervous sweat broke out along his collar. The loudest partners frantically checked their binders, pen tips trembling down the margins. On the main screen, the camera caught CEO George Whitmore leaning forward in total shock. When his quiet voice hit the speaker, the truth was crystal clear. Stop the deal. The quiet truth-teller opened one last file. It was a brief internal memo he dug up, buried as a bullet point inside a massive strategy document. It dismissed the team's valid warnings about the addendum using this exact arrogant phrase: risk-averse thinking that must not be allowed to slow a defining financial deal. The memo's author was a name every executive at that table instantly recognized. Clinton froze completely, refusing to look at Astrid while staring down at the carpet. Astrid barely breathed. This quiet single father had not made a fool of her today. He showed her, calmly and without ego, that her loud team had manipulated her entirely. But she knew that difference only mattered if she finally took a real stand now. Right then, the heavy conference room door clicked open with a very soft sound. No one sent for little Callista. She had simply waited in silence long enough. She stood there in a blue cardigan and sneakers, clutching a stuffed rabbit tight to her chest. Her hair was slightly flattened on one side from the waiting room lounge chair. She nervously scanned the massive boardroom, full of intimidating adults she did not know. Then her eyes locked onto her quiet father, and all the tension left her tiny shoulders. "Daddy," she asked, "can we go home? I am so hungry." You and I know tension. No one spoke. The senior delegate's pen just hovered silently. One arrogant executive carefully set his water glass down without making a single sound. The live video feed captured George Whitmore taking a very slow, deeply humbled breath. The quiet truth-teller did not stand immediately. He simply looked at his daughter with the exact same quiet steadiness he gave the contract. For a brief moment, the sheer crushing weight of that morning, the locked boardroom doors, the denied badge access, the locked files, that silent warning email from Human Resources, the long, punishing silence designed to make this quiet man feel incredibly small, it was all visible on his face. He did not have to explain a thing. Every loud executive in there finally understood. Astrid stood up. She had grown up navigating these ruthless corporate boardrooms. She was taught that strong, powerful leaders never apologize in front of their business partners. You and I know true leadership. She decided instantly those arrogant rules were completely wrong. She walked around the massive table, her heels steady on the carpet, stopping a very respectful distance from his daughter. She did not touch the child. She looked straight at Finn. "Mr. Corbin is absolutely right," she announced, her voice booming clearly across the live video feed. He raised his valid concerns Thursday through the proper official channels. Those valid concerns were simply not answered in good faith. The contract addendum was altered last night under a toxic pressure I allowed in this building. Our internal review today blindly reached the absolute wrong conclusion about the completely wrong person. And I foolishly let it happen. If this deal had been signed today, this company and our partners would face a disastrous financial position none of us could accept. Watch this with me. Her face barely shifted toward the screen. "Chairman, I request we suspend this signing until the original clause is restored and we investigate who made that overnight edit." George Whitmore's face remained completely frozen on screen, then a slow nod. "Suspension approved. I expect a full corporate audit by tomorrow evening, Mr. Mercer. You are handing all your drafts and emails to internal counsel today. Mr. Hawthorne, you will fully cooperate. Acting Chief Executive, your signing power for this deal is suspended until the audit finishes." The chairman softened slightly. "Thank you, Mr. Corbin." Finn simply nodded. The quietest man had the truth, staying silent since Callista walked in. He simply walked across the boardroom and knelt beside his young daughter. Gently brushing hair from her face, he whispered, "You were so good today." "So good, let's go grab some lunch." "Okay," she whispered. She handed him her stuffed rabbit. He took it, tucking the toy under his arm as usual. Standing up, he took her hand, gave the stunned executives a final nod, and walked out. The boardroom door closed behind them with a very soft click. Only then did the heavy, suffocating room finally begin to breathe. Over the following week, Whitmore Global operated with extreme, quiet caution. The soft-spoken analyst had his network access completely restored by evening. His security badge suddenly worked again. Human Resources sent an email blaming his suspension on a technical error, offering a swift formal apology. Colleagues who once ignored him now stopped by his desk with cheap excuses. Finn remained polite to everyone, never using his new influence to make others feel small. But he did not let them forget either. The loud and arrogant Clinton Mercer was suspended pending the full audit. Within 10 days, the corporation quietly announced his exit as a mutual transition. Leon Hawthorne barely clung to his position for the moment. But they demoted him out of corporate counsel directly into a dead-end compliance role. The company issued a brief memo about the situation, carefully omitting Finn's name. But you and I know the executives realized exactly who had saved them. That critical multiport clause was fully restored to its original draft. The external partners watching the drama unfold finally agreed to sign. They sent a message their lead delegate insisted on delivering in person. They signed because they saw a firm that survived a crisis, not just one cruising through easy days. Late one evening, long after the office cleared, Astrid found Finn stripped of her corporate armor. She wore simple flats, a casual gray sweater with her hair tied back loosely. She stood quietly at the edge of his workspace, waiting for him to look up. When the quiet analyst finally met her eyes, she offered no grand speech, just 3 words. "I was wrong." Finn did not respond immediately. The quiet man owed her absolutely nothing. Yet he did not want to make her confession more painful than it already was. He slowly set his pen down. "I was wrong about the financial clause," she confessed. "I was wrong about the review. I was wrong to talk down to you, and wrong for attacking your daughter's presence inside this office. I used her to make you look small. It was a cruel mistake, and it never should have happened." Taking a slow, deep breath, she added, "I am not asking for your forgiveness today. I am just proving I finally understand the difference between my actions and what you and I know was right." He let that boardroom silence stretch, holding all the power. "Thank you for saying that," he said. "It matters." Then he added carefully, "The thing I almost lost this week was not my pride. It was health insurance, rent, a specialist appointment, and a daughter who already knows what it feels like to wait. I want you to understand that before we go any further." The CEO nodded, finally hearing his truth. 10 days later, they offered him Senior Operations Director, giving the quiet father his own executive team. A seat at that high-stakes table, plus a salary bump making those heavy bills much less cruel. The HR lead asked, mostly as a corporate formality, what questions he had about the executive compensation package. He only had one question: "Does this role offer flexibility when my daughter is sick?" The lead paused, stunned by his real priority. "Yes," she said. "Yes, it does." He considered it for 2 days before accepting the corporate offer. Fast forward to a Friday evening just a few weeks later. CEO Astrid Whitmore was standing in the lobby when Finn came down from his new office, little Callista beside him. The little girl rambled about a messy crayon drawing of a house with way too many windows. He laughed softly, neither of them noticing the powerful corporate boss at first. Standing alone near the tall glass windows, the powerful CEO froze and did not step forward. She just watched. You and I often think like her, believing power means making an entire corporate boardroom fall silent. But over these past weeks, she had finally learned a different truth. That real power means having the courage to stay quiet and listen. Let the hard truth stand on its own, then speak up at exactly the right moment. Not to boost some executive ego, but purely to protect those who cannot speak for themselves. Finn spotted her near the exit, offering a tiny wave, and the CEO slowly returned the gesture. Callista looked up at him, entirely curious. "Who is that, Dad?" "Someone I work with," he replied. "Is she nice?" He seriously considered it. She is trying to be, he said, knowing that effort actually counted for something. Together they walked right out into the warm, late afternoon light. Astrid watched the quiet father leave, then slowly turned back toward the corporate elevators. The click of her heels sounded much softer than the morning. She snapped icy words at the quietest man sitting in her corporate conference room. She still did not know exactly what kind of corporate leader she would become. But she knew she had met a real leader on a day that almost ended in absolute disaster. And she learned from this quiet father that the strongest voice in any corporate boardroom isn't always the one screaming the loudest. As you and I now see, real power belongs to whoever dares to speak the truth when others stay silent. While a small child waits patiently just on the other side of the glass,